So I get the pleasure, thank you, Via. I get the pleasure of introducing a guy that I've known for a couple of years now, probably, I guess, 5 years now, and a man who probably needs no introduction, but please welcome to the stage Kris Lindahl of Kris Lindahl Real Estate. So I'm struggling to figure out what we should talk about.
That's good. Let's ask the audience. Whoa.
Yeah, it's loud. It's hot.
Especially
they come
for me.
in hot.
Let's ask the audience.
So let me ask you. I mean, obviously,
that's Dr. Slido thing that Brad has.
There you go. Right. So you kind of made a big change over the last month or so. About 3-4 weeks ago. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So we declared our innovation independence, and so we went independent, and it was long overdue. Like a lot of decisions that I've made in my career, should have made it sooner. Just like the previous brokerage I was at prior to the last one I was at, should have left there sooner. And you don't know what you don't know until you get to the other side of it. But it's a wonderful place where we are now.
So tell everybody a little bit about your team. So how big is your team? How many agents?
Yeah.
Transactions, all that.
That's right. So we are, last year we did 750 transactions. We had about 25 agents on the team. We lost our number 2 and we lost our top 5 agents last year in May, and our business doubled. And one of the big reasons that is, I think, is because of leadership. You know, and that's the big thing. As I talk to so many of you being here and listening to everyone talk, I think one of the things that is a buzzword is leadership, but no one really talks about what that actually means. Like, it's like, oh, you got to have good leadership, but then when I have one-on-one conversations with people at this conference, no one can answer what they're doing for personal development or for leadership growth, not only personally but professionally. And then I find that a lot of people will have growth for them. They'll have a plan for themselves, but not for their team. And so like, oh yeah, I have a coach, or I read these books, or I attend these seminars, and I go, well, what about the rest of the organization? If it works so well for them, why aren't you doing that for your people as well? And I think that's the one thing, is like, our leadership is so strong. And I think a lot of people in our market, a lot of people that follow us think that everything is marketing, and that we market, and that's why we do so much business. I think the thing where we're extremely underestimated is how good our leadership is. And what happens is, your organization takes a life of its own. Like, this organization isn't about Kris Lindahl anymore. It's about our leadership team. It's about our agents. It's about their families. It's about their kids. It's about their grandkids. It's changed so much now for us. And when you look at where we were last year and having that minor blip on the radar, they all left in that short period of time, which we had never had any turnover since we started. Nothing happened. Next month, more sales. Next month, more sales. And we did it with less people because we had solid systems in place and we had solid leadership, including myself. For over the last 6 years, I just continually invest in myself and growing, you know, because I don't have it all figured out, and I make mistakes, but I will tell you today, the number one advantage we have is the way that I can show up on stage, the way that I can talk in front of people, the way I can talk in front of video. And you roll back 6 years ago, and I was so nervous. I remember that first video that I recorded. I'd shoot 100 a day. And I'd record that video, and I'd run out in the hallway and like, oh my gosh, I hope no one heard that. And now in our market, I can put on events all the time, every day, and none of the other leaders in any of the other organizations are willing to do that.
So let me ask you, so you have a very successful team, and at the time you were a RE/MAX team leader, right? And you decided, I'm going to go completely out on my own. I'm not move my team to a different brokerage, but I'm going to start my own brokerage effectively, but run it like a team. So what led to that decision? What was kind of the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so a lot of times, you know, when you're going to make a move or things start to show up, you start getting clues. And so consumers were starting to think we owned our brokerage. You know, the previous brokerage that we were at was the top brokerage in the country for the company that we used to be with. And almost every single day we'd get at least 5, maybe 10, 15 people that would say, oh yeah, we're working with your company. And so what happened is we didn't even know what we were losing. And I think that's, you know, and that's with any brokerage, not specific to the one that we were at, but anytime you have to give up 50 or 51% of the real estate of all the marketing that you do, because in our market, the brokerage name has to be more prominent than the agent or the team name. You don't even know what you're missing. And so now that we're on the other side of it, now we're at a point where we're getting 5 to 10 applications a day for licensed agents that are going to our careers page and are applying to be in our company. and the amount of seller and buyer leads has almost doubled, because what we didn't know is we didn't know how many of those people were going to other agents or other offices in our brokerage or with the brand saying, is this Kris Lindahl's office? And as we know in real estate, a lot of times, if someone goes to another agent and says, is this Kris Lindahl's office? They're going to figure out how to pivot and get that business instead of us.
Right, right. So you've made this transition. As you were going through it, I'm assuming that there were things that you kind of prepared for, that as you were looking ahead, what were the big risks that you saw in making this transition when you really started kind of getting to that point where you're like, crap, I think we really actually need to go out on our own. I need to break away. What were the biggest concerns you had, and how did you address those in advance?
Good question. So I didn't have any concerns, but our team had concerns, obviously, like our leadership team and our operations. And the biggest one is like the liability and like the legal side of it. Like, what happens? You're an aggressive marketer and someone says you did this, or you contacted someone you weren't supposed to, or whatever it is. And I never have fear, because I look at anything that happens in our organization as a learning opportunity. And so we learn from it and we get stronger. I look at where we are today. We have had so many learning opportunities to get us where we are today. We are so far ahead of anyone else in our market with the amount of learning opportunities that we had, that they don't even know what we're going to do next. But every decision we make now is based on something that we learned prior.
So here you are. You have no fears. Your team did, right? Some concerns going into it. You mitigate those. So what were the biggest concerns that they had, other than the legal side of it? Were there concerns about turnover? Because you've got your leadership team, and they're probably going, right, well, we've got all these agents. What happens if we have this mass exodus? So
for sure, yeah. I mean, most people don't like change, right? So including leadership, including our agents, I think that was the biggest thing. Is it's, you know, you have those people that, those agents that might sort of be on the edge. You're like, are they going to stay with our other brokerage? Are they going to go somewhere else? Because it's an opportunity to reevaluate where they're at. And so we had a few people who were like, we're not sure what they're going to do. But, you know, after it was all said and done, and this is very unique for this to happen, and this is a testament to everyone in our organization and in leadership and the agents, no one left. Wow. So no one left. And in most organizations, when you make a change, an abrupt change that fast, and let them know, you know, with a less than a week's notice, I mean, you could lose 30-40% of your people.
Wait, 1 week notice, that's all you gave them?
That's right. Yep. So we made the entire change, went into started Tuesday, left the following Thursday over Memorial Day weekend.
Wow. How long was this planned in advance of that?
Not too long, but we ran so independent of our brokerage, and I think that's so common with a lot of the mega teams, that they have their own technology, they have their own people. Most of the stuff they do, we had our own office. All of our contracts in terms of marketing and advertising were all in our name. We didn't have anything in our brokerage name. So flipping the switch wasn't that difficult. There were a couple timelines that we had to work with the local government, but other than that, it wasn't that difficult. And the reason I say it wasn't that difficult is because of the leadership team that we have in place. If you roll back 2 or 3 years prior, it would have been extremely difficult. But the level of talent that we had, because of the brand that we've developed, it made it a lot easier to make that transition.
So how many people on your leadership team?
So we have 7 on our leadership team right now.
Okay. And so you've got them kind of guiding this process through for you. So now you're on the back end of this, you know, it's happened. What surprised you most about being on this end of the transition?
Yeah, the biggest thing that surprised me is the way that people in our community look at us. They look at us completely different now that we own our own thing, even though they really thought we owned our own company with our team. But just different doors open from business owners, from companies wanting to do partnerships, from people wanting to send you referrals. They look at it just a lot different when you truly own your own independent brokerage versus being with a franchise.
And one of the things you mentioned in kind of the initial announcement was the desire to innovate, and that this was really going to free you up to innovate within your team, within your business. Give me an example of some of those innovations. What are the things that you feel like you can do now that you couldn't do before? Right.
So one of the restrictions in any franchise, I mean, like we were talking before, there are different layers in an organization and a franchise. I mean, you've got, you know, corporate a lot of times, you've got regions, you've got franchisees, you've got all these different levels. And what happens is when you're aggressive and you're innovating at a really high level, there's a percentage of the people that aren't happy or want to focus on what you're doing, and they're playing defense, and they want to send that to the broker, and they want to complain. And so when you run an organization of 1,200, 1,300 agents like our previous brokerage did, the amount of calls start coming in, like, how can Kris Lindahl's team do this and we can't, and they're doing this, and it starts to go like crazy. And so that's why I say, like, getting rid of that now, the beautiful thing about this whole thing, and this is the best thing, all of those people that were concerned about what we were doing and the innovation we were creating, they have to call us personally now. They don't call a brokerage anymore. They have to pick up the phone and call us. And guess what? No one's calling. No one's calling anymore.
What? Yeah. So here you are. You've got all this innovation that you're going to be bringing to your team, to your business, to what you're doing. And as you're looking ahead to what this is going to look like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, what's next for this business?
Yeah, so to continue to grow the leadership team, for one, our systems are really solid, but anytime you have growth, especially at the level that we do, new things expose themselves. And you're like, the things you don't know today, tomorrow we could learn something new. Just like they were talking about Ben Kinney and his expansion into Texas, like, very few sales in the first 6 months. And we've expanded into another market. And fortunately, we're doing really well down there. But anytime you're managing people remotely or you have those things going on, we're taking the more inkblot approach. But the issue is different things present themselves. In terms of growth, we're going to continue to grow and innovate, and we'll be one of the top independent brokerages in the country. But that piece is totally fine. I'm okay with that. I'm so obsessed with growing our people because I'm convinced that if you have great people that you take care of, the foundation of your business will work itself out. We don't need marketing. I'm about as true of a visionary as you can have. We just want to continue to develop our people because then what happens is they go home to their family, they're a better person. They go to their community, they're a better person. And let's face it, what we know in real estate is there are challenges every day. When you work and help people become better people, well, then they show up better for problem solving. And then they have a better reputation with other agents in their market. Everything becomes better, but the thing that I've seen is no one is willing to look in the mirror and face it and say, you know what? I need to grow as a person. I need my company to grow. I need to invest in them. No one's willing to have those conversations. Everyone says, like, hey, I've got great leadership, or you know what, we're learning, we're doing this, we're doing training. But when you ask 2 or 3 layers deep a question, they can't ever answer it. And it's fascinating. I've been all over the country at brokerages, teams, agents, and the number one thing is no one's really willing to grow as a person. They say they are, but then a day later they don't do anything.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of team leaders in the room, and some of them are probably wondering, how do I know if a move like this is right for me? Or how do I know if I shouldn't even consider it? So looking back on, you've been doing this for how many years now?
May 2009, I got my license.
Okay, so 9 years, roughly. So 9 years it took you to basically get to this point. Looking back, you said you would have done it sooner. When would you have done it, and when should somebody consider it, and when shouldn't they consider it?
For sure, yeah, good question. So looking back, so when I started in May 2009, I look back to all of these different decisions that were made and how delayed they were. It's no different. I started the Kris Lindahl team in January of 2015. And so that was basically out of necessity because in 2014 I sold 147, or 2013 I sold 147 houses. In 2014 I sold 175 with an assistant. I needed help. I should have had a team 2 or 3 years prior to that. So we start the team and all of a sudden we have this exponential growth. But really, it's because I couldn't touch the opportunities. I couldn't help the people and provide the level of service that I wanted to when I was an individual agent. And it's no different than the brokerage. Nothing's really changed for us, to be honest, other than we have 100% control of our brand. In the marketing, we have 100%. Everything that we do, we're 100% on. And we should have started the brokerage when we started the team. I mean, we should in 2015. Because at that time, 14, I just came off 175 transactions. And we were going into 2015, and we acquired some really good talent at that point. We should have started our brokerage at that time, knowing what I know today, because it's not as scary as people make it seem.
But knowing you were going to grow it to be a fairly large-sized team. Like if somebody's going, I just want a team of 5 or 10 people, would you advise them to go out and start a brokerage?
Well, it's case by case. For me, I wanted to have 100% control of my destiny, right? So as amazing as the organization was where I came from, it's still not all yours. And there are still decisions you can't make that you have to rely on someone else to make. And one of the other things, too, is so much of real estate is old school leadership. And that is getting disrupted in 2 forms right now. One is for everyone that watched today, you've got the red fins, the purple bricks, and you've got all this innovation that's coming, but also you have all of the teams that are starting to leave the brokerages. And what happened was the value add for the brokers for so long was let's give all the commission to the agents. Well, they've now given all the commission to the agents, whatever franchise model you want to look at. Almost every single time, most of the compensation goes to the agent and or the team. The teams have figured out how to adjust compensation and add value, because what started to happen is a lot of agents aren't good at prospecting. You know, prospecting is the #1 struggle that most people have when they want to have a business. And so if you can figure out and teach people how to prospect and you have opportunities and you keep them so busy, then they're going to be in a really good spot. And so for us, leaving that brokerage and being able to invest 100% in what's happening and control everything that's coming into the funnel has made a significant difference. And I think a lot of times our mindset is we're scared to make that jump. We're like, oh, everyone told us it's going to be so difficult, it's going to be so hard. I'm telling you right now, it's not hard, it's not difficult. As long as you have the right people in place, it's actually not that hard. I would recommend that everyone in this room that's thinking about someday being a broker, I would recommend make sure you have your broker's license and make sure that you are ready. If tomorrow your brokerage sold or your broker asked you, you know what, we no longer want you to be there, you have a disagreement, could you flip the switch and be a broker if you absolutely had to? Just be in a position of power where you can make that change. Not that you necessarily want to, but it will be really helpful to have that flexibility.
That they have the option. So with that, we are actually over time. I could talk with you about this for hours, and you are actually going to have a round table here after the next session, I believe. So we got one more panel that's going to be coming up, but can you guys give Kris a round of applause as a thank you? Appreciate that, brother.